I'm Janine Harris with Beyond the Written Word, and I'm here today with Helen Wilkie from HelenWilkie.com. Helen works with companies, specifically professional services firms, with marketing. And we had a chat recently, and one of the areas that Helen helps companies is with content syndication as part of the marketing mix. And I thought this was a really interesting way to introduce video. And we'll get to that in a moment, but can you talk to us a little bit about content syndication and how you're working with these firms?
Yes, of course. Well, syndication is, people understand the idea of syndication when they think about syndicated columnists. And if you are a syndicated columnist, you have the same column that goes out in many publications. Content syndication online is an outgrowth of that, but it's a little bit different. And the way it usually works is I'm a writer, so it starts from the written word. And in most cases, it will start with a blog post. But rather than spending a lot of time coming up with this content and writing the blog post and then just doing that with it and leaving it at that, content syndication allows you to take that one piece of content and repurpose it in many different ways. I like to call it one message, many audiences. So for example, what I recommend in its simplest form, you start with a blog post. And then the next thing you do, and I kind of spread this out over several days. So you write your blog post, and the next thing you do is just record the audio of that. So you can just read your blog post. Now I recommend you practice it a little bit so it doesn't sound as though you're reading it. But you read your blog post and you create an MP3 audio file. And you, first of all, you do two things with that. You put it up on your blog beside the written word. And usually I would suggest you put up a few words that would say something like, as I do myself, read or listen, your choice. And then it's the same message and people realize that. So, but the other thing you can do is create a podcast. And that's done through iTunes. So you have two things that you've done with your audio. So the next thing you want to do is introduce an element of visuals. Now you don't go right to video. The first thing you do between the audio and the video, there's a slide cast. Now slideshare.net is the service, the most well-known one that you can put your slides up on. But what I don't like personally as a consumer of content is I don't like to go and just see a slide deck with no commentary. So that's the beauty of doing your audio first, because you just then put them together and you put, instead of a slide share or a slide deck, they call it a slide cast. So that's up there on SlideShare, and that goes every which way for people to see it. And then the final step is to make a video. Now I like to do that in several different ways. Sometimes you can do it as simply as taking your SlideShare and adapting it and making it into an actual video. But personally, I think it's more effective if you have at least part of it as live action video, something like what we're doing today. And of course, you don't need two people, it can be just one person. But what's really effective is if you cut between both, so you have a little bit of talking head video, as they call it, and then maybe introducing the subject, and then you have your PowerPoint or your keynote slides. And the important thing about this too is that at every stage along the way, everything that you do, every way that you post this material, you have to do the Twitter, you have to do your notification on your Facebook page and on your LinkedIn page, an update to say that you're doing this. So you have several different ways of people consuming the content, and lots of opportunities for them to do that.
You're not talking about a professional studio shoot like what we're doing here. This can be very simply done in your office. And now, it sounds complicated because you think about all these steps. And that's where I think somebody like you comes in, where you don't have to. Your professional services firms aren't writing all their own content. You're helping them manage this process.
I'm helping them write it to begin with in many cases, yeah.
But you're really taking that notion of one idea. So any business owner, and we work with a lot of small business owners, any business owner will tell you that, boy, getting the time to get that content together. So you're maximizing that, and I love that idea of taking something and making more of it.
Exactly, yeah.
And now, why did you choose audio and video? Because obviously I have a vested interest in audio and video, but what do you think that adds for the consumer of the content?
Well, it's just another way. I mean, some people listen to podcasts in their car, and they listen to, you know, iTunes podcasts on whatever subject interests them in many different ways. It's not something I do as a consumer. I don't usually listen to podcasts, but I know many people do. Plus, there's the idea that when they come to my blog, they can consume it in two different ways. And it's pretty obvious that it's the same content. The other thing that I do is on the website, not the blog itself, but on the website, I have a section on my website that says Helen on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And it's not all YouTube, but that's what it's called. And so after I've finished putting the video up on YouTube and Vimeo and wherever else it goes, I also have it on this separate page on my website so that people have an opportunity to see the video there. So, and the thing that I need to stress to people is that, as you said, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be, you know, beautiful high-tech equipment like what we're using here today in a great studio. That's the optimum. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to be doing a lot of this, I think it's worth the investment. I really do. I think it's worthwhile. But before you're there, before you've reached that point, when you're still working on this, you don't have to do that. You can, you know, a simple, you know, I use my iPhone. You know, just a simple thing like an iPhone or a flip camera just to capture yourself on video. The main thing, as you know, you can tell people this, is it's the lighting. You have to have it properly lit.
And sound.
And sound together, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it can be, you can do it yourself, but it shouldn't be handmade looking.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think you also make a good point that there's a time and a place to get into a professional situation.
Yes.
And I'm curious about one of the things that I work with clients is, and I'm a big believer that if you're coming into the studio, do more than one thing. And you could actually pre-plan many of the blog posts. So if you knew you had 5 or 6, if you release them monthly or weekly, whatever, you could come in and do write your 6, record your 6, and then do a professional video shoot of the 6 if you wanted to.
Well, I mean, I always recommend to my clients that they do that anyway. Don't be sort of, if you blog on a Wednesday, don't be on Tuesday night wondering what you're going to blog about. You should really have an editorial schedule set up of what you're going to blog, and if you have a theme for the month, that's good too. So yes, absolutely, you can write all your blog posts up at the same time, and then you can batch audio them, and it's all done. So then you come into a studio and you do 8. Maybe you blog once a month and you do 8, and you've got 2 months worth of video there.
That's great.
So it's a very practical way of doing it.
So I'm gonna leave this with, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but 3 tips for professional services firms or anybody who's listening to this. What are your 3 tips for preparing your content and making the most out of it? What would be 2 or 3 tips?
Well, the first thing is to plan it. Don't wing this. And if your firm has several different, for example, lawyers or accountants who are going to be doing this, they need to get together and plan it properly so that you know what you're going to write about and what you're going to say. And also, and this is a little bit of plug for my services as well as yours, but in many cases, professional services people explain themselves in a little bit too much jargon. And so it's difficult for people to really get their message. And so I can help them with that. I can help them to they can tell me the message, they tell me what it is they want to say, but I help them to say it in a straightforward way that somebody could understand. And I think that's really important, because if they don't understand it, it'll be boring and they won't read it.
Exactly. So
that's the first tip at the writing stage. The second thing is, I would say, to ask yourself what kind of video really would be the most appropriate, and at the beginning the easiest for you to do. So if you're, for example, teaching people something, PowerPoint slides with a good narrative behind it can do the trick. And the other thing is, you don't want it to be too long. People have a short attention span even for video, so you like to keep it to about 3 minutes or so.
Exactly, which is a good cue for us to end this video. Please, if you want to check out more of what Helen's doing with content syndication, check out her website at HelenWilkie.com. Thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Janine.
Take care.